Hi, this is Pat Duckworth, a hot woman with cool solutions and the author of the #1 international best-selling book, Hot Women Rock: How to Discover Your Midlife Entrepreneurial Mojo. And over the last few weeks, I've been talking to the women, the co-authors of the book, about their entrepreneurial stories. But today I'm speaking to the wonderful hot women entrepreneur who wrote the foreword for the book. And my guest today grew up in an entrepreneurial family, and she's owned her business for 20 years. As a professional speaker, an author, an entrepreneur, she helps business communicate, connect, and collaborate for success. She's got an interesting business path, which we'll be asking her a bit more about. Before starting her business, she was a correctional officer in the jail system, a corporate mediator, and leader for several not-for-profit organizations. All of these experiences helped prepare her to build her own thriving business and the lifestyle she loves. Wow, we're going to have a great conversation. Hello, Charmaine Hammond. How are you?
Hello, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me on and for being part of your amazing book.
Oh, I'm so excited to be talking to you. We've got so much to talk about. I'm just going to dive right on in.
Good.
So, we've just said you started out working in a correctional facility, and then you moved through being a mediator and then finally becoming an entrepreneur. What was the point, or what was the trigger point where you became that entrepreneur?
Well, the trigger point was after I got my master's degree and went and got trained as a mediator. I had opened my business just sort of, I'll say, just on a very part-time basis. I was working for government at the time. And when I decided to be I think I sort of had made a tentative decision to be an entrepreneur because I started a mediation practice. But when I decided to really make this my life, and to do away with the government job, was when I became conflicted because my time was being demanded from two very important parts of my life: mediation clients and my government job. And I just thought, what the heck? I'm going to jump in with both feet. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My mom and dad had a flower shop when I was little, and I thought, what's the worst thing that can happen? I have to maybe go back to having a job. And that's 21 years ago, and I still have my business. And that was the tipping point, was being forced into the decision.
And how has your business developed over those years?
Like many entrepreneurs, it's changed a lot. It's changed where my purpose and my passion has gone in different areas. I had a very successful mediation practice and an employment services company at the same time. So 2 businesses, about 10 staff. And then when I was ready to be done mediating, I decided that I really wanted to step full speed ahead into my biggest passion, which was speaking. And so gave up the other parts of businesses. And I think that's one of the tough challenges for entrepreneurs, is that sometimes to really go in the direction of our passion and our purpose, it means we have to leave other things behind and close those loops. So we closed the mediation office. And the good part was I was moving at the time, so it made that transition a little easier. And then I just devoted my time to the things I love to do, which is speaking and writing.
Yeah. And you've written, how many books have you written now?
5 books, and featured in 7 others now, including yours.
And I know this is a bit like saying which is your favorite child, but if you could say, read one of my books, which one would it be?
My favorite book, hands down, that I think that just speaks to me is, I love my GPS, Your Best Life book, because I wrote that with a dear friend of mine. On Toby's Terms, which is a story I wrote about my dog, my first book, really speaks to some huge life transformation that I went through, all because of this dog. This dog really did change my life. And that book is probably my favorite book to have written, because in writing it, I had to make a lot of changes in my life. And it was my dog who kind of pointed those out to me, believe it or not.
Yeah, and tell us a bit about your philanthropic work as well, because this is a really important part of your life, isn't it?
It really is. Toby, our dog, inspired me to really put a stake in the ground and start looking at how we can make the world a kinder place. And with both of our dogs, we've had the pleasure of going into schools, and we, meaning my husband, my dog Toby, and I, going into schools and workplaces talking about kindness, acceptance, and respect. And last year, we did probably the coolest philanthropy project ever, which was the Million Acts of Kindness tour. And we traveled around North America in a 32-foot motorhome, which I've never driven one until that time. I drove it a total of 3 hours over 6 weeks. That was it.
At least you drove it.
At least on a very straight path. But the beautiful part of that was that my husband, Chris, Toby, and I had the opportunity to go into schools and workplaces and community groups and talk about kindness and how kindness really can transform the world. And then we had the wonderful experience of doing kindness activities along the way. And it was hugely transformational for me. It was a very moving 6 weeks, 10,000 miles across North America.
Wow. And has that experience translated now into your business?
It really has, in a couple of ways. One of them is that what made that tour really a success was the collaboration and the support of people saying, I love what you're doing. How can I help you? Yeah. And for someone who struggled for many years, that's me I'm talking about, for many years, to ask for help, which I think a lot of women struggle with, and so do entrepreneurs, that tour could not have existed without the help of people. And so watching this, people that I didn't even know, Pat, were emailing me and Facebooking me saying, I heard about this from someone. How can I support? What could I do? And it was just this big movement of accepting help. And that was transformational. But the other way that we've incorporated into our business is that what also made the tour successful was sponsorship. We had the motorhome, 32-foot motorhome, was sponsored by an amazing Canadian company, Fraser Way RV. And we had all these sponsors around North America that were supporting the tour, and more importantly, supporting the message of kindness getting out. Mm-hmm. And that has really impacted our business, because I've been teaching now for a few years to authors, speakers, entrepreneurs about how they too can build sponsorship into their business model.
Yeah, let's talk about that again in a moment. So this is Pat Duckworth, a hot woman with cool solutions, talking to Charmaine Hammond. And I want to talk about one of the neurological levels that I talk about in the book. And in your case, you've just brought it up. I really want to talk about resources and capabilities. I'm going to hold on to those resources. I'm not going to let you tell people about sponsorship.
Perfect.
I'm going to ask you about capabilities. And really, you know, a lot of women make this change in midlife to moving from a corporate job or a public service job into working as an entrepreneur. What do you think are the capabilities that you transferred from your original job into your entrepreneurship?
Wow, there's so many, but there's a couple that come to mind. And I was thinking about this morning before we got on Zoom together. One of them is purpose and passion. When I worked in the correctional system, I mean, it was a really negative environment and sometimes hard to come to work because we had to deal with a lot of difficult things. And people weren't always happy to see you as a correctional officer. And I was thinking about what kept me there I worked in that system for 10 years. And it was this sense of purpose and passion that I really believed that there could be some things that we could do to help these people find their way. Mm. And it was that just having purpose, which gave me then the direction that I needed to get through those days and bring my best version of myself to work. And that has stayed true right through many years that we fast forward into my own business, is that whatever I'm doing has to feel purposeful. Mm. And it doesn't have to just be on a philanthropy level. How I show up in my business has to feel like I'm connected to that sense of purpose and passion.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just thinking that in that work as well, you would have learnt some of your mediation skills, because you've really got to know how to talk to people, haven't you?
You do. That whole concept of being able to take differing perspectives, which happens in jails, but it happens in life. You know, we are in relationships with people that we don't always agree with. And how do we take a really tough conversation and work it through so that both people feel heard, understood, respected, and the conflict gets resolved? And that's an important skill set for business. And that has also woven right through my very first correctional officer job. I think I was on shift 4 minutes and I had to deal with a nasty, ugly conflict. And what's interesting is that there's a sub-capability that comes with that, Pat, and that's feeling confident in our skills. Yeah. I also learned that when I would react to conflict in a way that I was coming from a place of fear or nervousness or self-doubt, I was not successful in those conversations.
Yeah. And isn't that so true in business as well? You know, if you're talking to clients or potential clients and that fear is there, you're not going to make that connection.
Absolutely. And that it changes how we show up. I mean, that fear and nervousness, people don't get to see who we are as a person. It changes how we talk to someone. It certainly changes the result. So it was an important skill set for life and staying safe as a correctional officer and being able to help people, but also one that I use every day in business.
Yeah, fantastic. So we could talk a lot more about that, but we're moving on. Because there's this whole thing about sponsorship, and I know that there will be many hot women entrepreneurs who will be interested in some of your thoughts about sponsorship and perhaps some top tips.
Perfect. You know, sponsorship really is a marketing relationship. So this is where a business, and it doesn't have to be a huge company. It could be your local coffee shop or where you get your hair styled, your local gym. It's where a business comes to support either an entrepreneur, another business, or a nonprofit organization, and they provide support to a cause or a project by way of donating in-kind services or products or through cash. And examples of sponsorship, when I put out On Toby's Terms 7 years ago, I ended up having 30 sponsors. And you know, Pat, the first 30 people to say yes to come on and sponsor different aspects of my book launch, the speaking I did related to it, were people that I already knew.
Yeah.
So my hairstylist was, I think, number one to come on board. And people might be saying, well, what does a hairstylist have to do with kindness tours and books? Did she travel with you and do your hair? Not at all. I did get my hairstyle at no cost for many years. But what she also did was bought copies of my books to sell in her salon, to give out to people. I know you've done similar things. You've had sponsors too, Pat, that have done that. You know, and then my financial advisor sponsored me to do presentations in schools. Yeah. So she covered the cost of that and purchased my books for kids. And that's where I starting with the relationships that I had already and looking at how could we collaborate so that there's a win for you and a win for me. And then that led up to 32-foot motorhomes and big cash sponsorships. But the core, and I'm going to come back to your question about capabilities, the big capability, relationship.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
What it is.
Yeah, I mean, I was inspired by you when I heard you speak last year. So when I was launching Hot Women Rock, I just stood up. I thought, I'm just going to do this. You know, if you don't ask, people don't know what you want. So I stood up at a local networking group one morning and I said, you know, my book's finished. I'm going to be launching it in India in May. And I'm looking for some people to help me to launch it and get this word out to more women and, you know, talk to me. And the woman sitting next to me, who I know, who runs a local, you know, high-class dress shop, said, I'm in, Pat, what do you want? Wow. And yeah. And I thought, thank you, Charmaine. You know, I wouldn't have asked. And now, you know, somebody who knows me, and she also wrote her story for the book, but her partner is a printer, and he had 200 books printed for me. So, wow. I know, fantastic.
Incredible.
And actually, I've sold a number of those books and given that money to charity because they were printed for me for free. So they've gone to ovarian cancer action. So, you know, this lovely cycle of reciprocity and being able to give is just fantastic.
That's a great example. And again, it comes down to that relationship, but that probably would not have happened if you didn't find that confidence to just put out the ask. And it's sort of like, I think Jack Canfield said this once when I was I think it was Jack Canfield that said it, if you don't ask, the answer is always going to be no. But what if you ask and they say yes?
I know, and it's just a fabulous moment when somebody goes, okay.
Yeah.
So I am really looking forward to seeing you, Charmaine, because it's less than a month now to the Global Influence Summit. Do you want to say a little bit about that?
Oh, I would love to. The Global Influence Summit is an event for speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, and it's really about helping them up-level their business. So identifying some of the blocks and barriers that we all have, regardless of what stage of business we always bump up against things. So it's really helping that audience figure out what the barriers are and moving beyond them, putting things in place to move beyond the barriers, to really take their business and their message and their influence to a much bigger level. And we have incredible audience members that are coming, Pat, for example, from around the world. And the beautiful thing that happens in the Global Influence Summit is not just what happens from the stage with these incredible speakers, it's what happens in the room. Yeah. The connections, I mean, you experienced that, Pat, the connections with the audience members and the collaboration that takes place is something that just I find so incredible to watch. So it's February 8th, 9th, and 10th in Sunrise, Florida, which is just outside Fort Lauderdale. And the website is globalinfluencesummit.com. And it's just going to be a fantastic event. I'm really, really pumped about it.
I loved it last year. I met so many just wonderful people. The talks from the stage were fantastic, but the networking, during breaks and lunches, it's just so worthwhile, no matter what stage your business is at. And you're going to be, that saying, who you spend time with is who you become.
Yes.
This is just a wonderful group of people to spend time with. And, all of the speakers put themselves out just to mix and to chat. And, it was a lovely environment and very nurturing, I felt.
Thank you for that. It really is. And I'm having so much fun working. Teresa DeGrobois and Joseph Ransett, all three of us are the co-hosts of this event. And what's also really interesting is people learn how to run events by being at events. So I know a lot of entrepreneurs are looking at holding their own retreats and workshops and events. And we were just having a conversation the other day about how just showing up at events actually teaches us what we can do in our own events. So there's a lot of this informal learning, I guess you could call it, that goes on there. And
I think a lot of fun. Come along, be curious, be open-minded and curious, and you will learn so much.
Yeah.
And it's in Florida and it's February.
I know. And some people like Joseph and Teresa who live and myself in Canada, it's snowy and cold in February. So if you're one of these people who's snowy and cold, February is a good place to be in Fort Lauderdale area.
Absolutely. Charmaine, how can people watching this, if they want to contact you or if they want to find out more about you and the wonderful work you do, give us some contact details.
Thank you. They can find me on Facebook. My professional page is Hammond International, HAMMOND, and also on the Global Influence Summit on Facebook, Twitter, and that's the same handle for the webpage. And I would love to stay in contact with people and learn from what others are doing in their business as well.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm so looking forward to it.
Me too.
Thank you so much, Charmaine, for talking to me today. And I'm sure the women watching this will get a lot from it. And, if they look at what you do and have a look at everything you've done with sponsorship, it's such a huge help. I know it's helped me a lot. So thank you again. And
thank you.
You're really welcome. And keep watching out for these videos. So much wisdom being shared. We can always learn new things. Have a great day.
Thank you.